Hello everybody and welcome back to Let's Learn How to Play Sins of a Solar Empire Rebellion with me, Get Dave. We're basically just finishing off everybody in this video, so I'm probably going to run things fairly inefficiently and we're just going to basically be pulling the trigger as fast as we can.
We will restore the unity.
And this fleet is probably enough.
We move to obey.
So one thing I want to point out is we recently moved the capital to Hecuba, which still hasn't got its income capped out yet. So the population's fairly low still, about half. So that'll go up a little bit more still. It has a feudal society, apparently, which is working against its allegiance. Still worth it. We have other benefits offsetting its negative allegiance. But I digress. You can see our monetary income. This doesn't count trade income, but it's looking pretty good, just off of taxation. The trade port income is very good as well. But the big bonus is coming in our resources. They've gone up by about 50% just by relocating the capital, because we finally found a relatively good planet to work with. And again, going after this ice planet probably would have been a best case scenario, but it wasn't really in our interests. Just the way the map played out. Oh goodness.
Share in my strength.
Yeah, everybody just go when you can. The way the map played out,
reporting for duty.
It ended up being just more useful to kill everybody in this order. Alright, looks like we lost a ship and then stole one. I'm okay with that trade-off. And no matter how confident you are, always scan first. It's pretty rare that you're in a situation where you're not at risk of losing your entire fleet with a misstep. All it takes is jumping into a minefield.
Great minds think alike.
However, they look to be economically destroyed. When we get the analytics at the end of this video, I'm willing to bet they have some sort of funny thing going on,
Make
like
ready for phase jump.
they increased their fleet capacity larger than mine. Without really concerning themselves with anything else. Okay, we'll super starbase it. All of these defense techs are pretty useful. Oh! We can increase our... I forgot about this one. We can increase allegiance with a starbase. That could be useful if we were deploying them a little differently. Don't think we need much there. Most of the benefit's going to be in
Cleansed the planet of heathens.
firepower. I often don't put much effort into improving our antimatter, just because, I don't know, I think of it as less important than just raw firepower. Oh, we need some evangelization. There we go. We'll just check all our different checkboxes there. Not a single desert city. That's a slight disadvantage for the Advent. Got all of our resources covered. Alright, super inflation on crystal.
The Unity senses a pirate raid is inevitable.
Alright, that should work for now. What was the one I was eyeing? Ah, yes. We have lots of barren planets. It'll take us a while before we'll have Arctic evangelism, so what I'm going to do is move ahead with the invasion.
We are sworn to avenge.
And I'm pretty sure I had a missionary vessel still intact somewhere.
Unity, light our path.
Maybe not.
Knowledge acquired.
There is one on the list, along with some weird pirate ships and the like that I've
Invoking phase engines.
apparently borrowed along the way. Ah, there we go.
Overcome. Pirate raiders have departed.
Make ready for phase jump. Stand by for phase jump.
Oh, this will be very quick.
Knowledge acquired.
So, and they only have little ships here, so yeah, I'm willing to bet that... I mean, they don't have a huge number of planets anyway, but I believe I destroyed their economy first. Oh, the Titan's coming for you.
Knowledge acquired.
They won't be around much longer. I believe our next level up for the Titan is the good one,
An enemy's capital has been destroyed.
and is now mine.
Knowledge acquired. Planet development complete.
I don't think we really need to do anything more with this. I guess we'll
Knowledge
mind
acquired. We cannot
our
build
pocketbook,
there. Planet development complete.
but that should be good.
As the Unity commands. Construction finished.
Missionary vessel has arrived, but it's going to take us a while just because of how I
Our
queued up
fleet
research
has arrived.
before
Knowledge
we
acquired.
get... Oh no, we have Arctic evangelism.
For the Unity.
Moving into phase space.
Well, that wasn't very
Stand
helpful
by
game.
for phase jump.
Planet development complete.
Arctic planets tend to have
Knowledge
more
acquired.
crystal. Ah, here we go. So
Knowledge
yeah, the
acquired.
game noticed we just had an absurd
Construction
military
finished.
dominance,
Planet development complete.
and yeah, everyone else basically surrenders. So, success. Now this will get interesting. So, credit income rate. Generally when there's a drop, especially a gradual one, that usually means... Well, actually, no, I'm a little confused for a minute there. A very steady gradual drop. Usually the spikes are when you upgrade a new fleet level. Slow decline is a little confusing to me. Things like blockades and the like can do that, but anyway. They might just be connecting the dots smoothly from 2 data points. Something that could cause this would be like losing a planet. I don't know. Anyway, what I'm particularly interested in is the max ship slots. Red actually had a solid economy, or should have had a solid economy. The interesting trade-off is, so the larger your fleet capacity, the lower income you have overall. But the trade-off is, ships are what you spend a ton of your money on. The case could be made that your entire empire exists to support your war fleet. And if you take a look, at the end of the game, they had a max capacity of 400, and I had 820. And at roughly the same time, we were on par with each other. So, basically, the point I'm trying to make is, by them having a lower fleet capacity, they inhibited their own economy because they weren't able to take from others at that point. If you're going to have a smaller fleet than everybody else, you have to engage them in tactically favorable situations, which usually mean you're on defense, and A calming tactic I like to use is to really fortify a system and then leave it undefended by ships. And then when they come to pick it off with their invasion fleet, then you send in your fleet and you can get some shots in on them, destroy some of their numbers, and you can make up for your lack of numeric superiority by having things like beam platforms and phase jump inhibitors, letting you really beat up on the other fleet with and it sort of evens the odds. You can do that, but that also means you're not out taking over new planets, and on smaller maps especially, where you just don't have all day to take territory, that can be a really big deal. In this one, everyone had their own territory, basically, and it sort of became a battle of who can take over a planet in somebody else's solar system first. But Red didn't even control their own successfully, right? Blue had that one in theirs, and then they were fighting to control their own territory. They weren't bottlenecking people at the star. They were fighting on planets they should have had control over, and yeah. It is worth mentioning, though, Blue did have the advantage. Of all the doppelganger systems, they got the favorable start. Anyway, capital ships. Interesting that Blue was ahead of us. Teal made a mistake. They were never dominant, never threatening anyone else. The fight was between everyone but them, and you can see they probably wrecked their own economy by tapping themselves dry early. If we take a look at used ship slots, they never got up that high. Whereas we generally steadily marched forward. You can also see, so we had the little dip and Blue had the cataclysmic drop-off. The important thing to note here, when we had our big battles with Blue's fleet, it was broken up into two. We didn't encounter the entire thing all at once. We jumped into one territory and they retreated, and that gave us an opportunity to really thin out the numbers. If we had continued pressing forward and jumped into their homeworld, with the ships they had in reserve, plus their defensive ones, plus the fact that we would have been low on antimatter, they probably would have devastated my fleet, actually. Because you'll recall, like, this spike is probably entirely due to me having a Titan, but it wasn't in the combat area right away. So we really only had about maybe 2/3 of our fleet available, so even after the drop-off, it would have been a pretty tight fight, and they would have had home field advantage. So anyway, moral of the story is try to shave away the enemy fleet. The big glorious battle is more exciting, but the max capital ship slots is kind of important. What you actually care about is capital ships. You'll note we didn't lose one for the entire game. That's important. Teal and Red didn't really either, but Blue we were constantly butting heads with. I mean, yeah, Teal I guess had probably 2 they lost, and then they... Yeah, anyway. Pretty even. This must be Titans produced, because your Empire... I was under the impression you could only have one Titan at a time. Oh well. And cultural percentage, we were really the only ones going for this game mode. As I mentioned, there are people who have other styles and they use culture very aggressively. If you're playing your cards right, the Unity is culture super weapon can be insanely effective, but again, I try not to rely on that, and my use of culture is mainly defensive and economic. By increasing the allegiance of your systems, you increase their general production by up to 10%. And if their allegiance starts going down, particularly from enemy culture, you'll eventually lose them, but their production will also go down. So I usually only build enough to maintain culture around my territory or where I want to go in the very near future. So that's just a note. If you are in a situation where you don't have a huge fleet, like we were talking about earlier, you could try controlling through culture. Just remember, every time you build a culture building, that's one military lab or civil research lab that you aren't going to be able to build. So you need at least probably 4 or 5 planets for that to be a viable strategy. And I think that's all I have to say about that. So in the next one, we're going to try taking Tech out for a spin. And I'm going to party up with 2 Visari factions. And yeah, I won't spoil it there, but we'll take a look at more of the diplomatic aspects. And we're going to play in on a map with only 1 star as well. So all of this should make for a very different experience. So I'll see you all there, and we'll look at how to play Tech, and maybe we'll talk about Visari a little bit. Although, truthfully, I don't know a ton about them. Great sail! I'll see you all in the next episode.